Ogoshi. In Ogoshi, you pull your opponent forward with your arm around his waist, then throw on your waist. Move in with your hip low. Make your throw only after your opponent's hip is sufficiently close. With your left hand, pull your opponent out off balance, forward to your left. Bring his waist sufficiently close to place him on your hips. Then, with both elbows outstretched, pull him straight up to throw. With your left hand under your opponent's side, as you come to grapple, pull his waist close and perform Ogoshi.
And now let's look at the technique Ogoshi.
Ukigoshi. In Ukigoshi, you draw your opponent's waist in close using one of your arms, then throw using the twisting motion of your waist. In the practice form, the throw is made as your opponent attacks, as if to strike. In Ukigoshi, you throw in a twisting motion, after bending back fully, using your left hip as the fulcrum. Your shoulder is placed deep under your opponent's arm, and your arm secures his waist position parallel to his belt. Look once again at how you bend your back, how your shoulder should be positioned, and how your waist is twisted. This is a rare film showing Professor Kano explaining his favorite technique, Ukigoshi, before the practice hall of Tokyo Higher Normal School in the early part of the century. Tsurigoshi. In Tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt from behind, then bringing him in close, lift and throw on your hip. You must defend against your opponent's Tsurikomigoshi while you grasp his belt from under his arm as you throw. In this form of Tsurigoshi, you grasp your opponent's belt over his shoulder. Pulling your opponent forward, you grasp his belt over his shoulder and throw using Tsurigoshi. Throwing as you grasp the front part of your opponent's belt is also an application of the Tsurigoshi technique. It's called a Tsurigoshi only when the belt is grasped in making the throw. Tsurikomigoshi. This is the kata form of Tsurikomigoshi. The moment your opponent protects himself by bending backwards, lower your hips and making them the fulcrum of your throw, pull him down with both your arms. In randori, you pull your opponent up with both arms and throw him on your hips when moving either forwards or backwards. Take firm hold of the rear of your opponent's jacket when he's bent forward in a defensive posture, to throw, pulling him up. This is also Tsurikomigoshi.
いですね。
音がしますね。
音がするぐらい。
あっ、入った一本。
袖釣り込み腰。You then have a choice of either taking hold of his sleeve opening like this, or taking hold of the elbow section of his sleeve. When grasping the sleeve opening, you sometimes do so by pushing your opponent's hand away. The throw is made when he comes back with the same hand to grasp your jacket.
Let's look at some variations of 袖釣り込み腰. You can also throw your opponent without using a left hikite, lifting and pulling with just the right hand.
Koshi Guruma. In Koshi Guruma, you grasp your opponent by the neck and throw in a twisting motion with him on your hips. Control your opponent by holding his neck. Place your waist deep under him and push to the side. Koshi Guruma must be executed by holding your opponent's neck. Harai Goshi. In randori, you seldom put your hand in as shown here. Here the technique is performed by following the motion of your opponent who withdraws. Another chance for using Harai Goshi presents itself when you pull your opponent out sideways as shown here.
Let's look at some examples of harai goshi.
Hanegoshi. Hanegoshi is a technique of throwing your opponent by bouncing him up using the movement of your hip and foot. Hanegoshi executed in pursuit. It's made the moment your opponent retreats and brings his left foot down. The leg to be used in bouncing your opponent up should be bent a little. You bounce him up around the lower part of his knee. The technique may be used after guiding your opponent sideways. Let's look at the difference between Hanegoshi and Haraigoshi. In Hanegoshi, you bounce your opponent up with your leg bent. In Haraigoshi, your leg is straight as you bounce your opponent up. Uchimata looks similar to Hanegoshi, except you place your leg in between your opponent's legs and bounce him up. Utsurigoshi. Utsurigoshi is a kind of technique used when your opponent attacks with Koshiwaza, to raise him up and throw him on your hips. This is an Utsurigoshi technique which originates from the opponent's Hanegoshi. This is Utsurigoshi, which started out as an Uchimata by the opponent. You completely raise your opponent up by the waist and opening outwards, throw after moving him over on your hips. Ushirogoshi. This is the throw to use when your opponent attacks with Koshiwaza. You lift your opponent up and throw him down in front of you. This Ushirogoshi has developed from the opponent's Hanegoshi. Ushirogoshi executed just as your opponent tries to defend himself by curling his feet around yours. When changing into Ushirogoshi, your opponent may try defending himself by attacking your foot, as in Ouchigari. You then lift up the foot that's been attacked, hoist him up, then throw him down. This is in case your opponent defends himself using something like Kouchigari. If your opponent defends himself by using Kouchigari from inside, lift your foot that's been attacked, hoist him up, and throw him down. When your opponent attacks with Osotogari, push his waist up with your leg as you throw him down. Dakiage. When on the floor, you grasp your opponent's belt to make him bend over. Then, with your arms crossed, grip both lapels to bring him near. Then, standing up on both legs, raise him up at once deftly to the shoulder level. This technique is dangerous if your opponent is dropped after being raised up, so that the effect of the throw was recognized only in 1926. In those days, an ippon was declared when you succeeded in raising your opponent up to the shoulder-high level at one go. But today, the match is suspended with the call of mate. The effect of the technique is not recognized.